The scent of pine needles and damp earth, usually a balm to Lena's soul, now carried an undercurrent she couldn't quite name, something wild and unsettling that mirrored the turbulence in her own heart. It was late spring in their secluded cabin nestled deep within California's Sierra Nevada mountains, a place that had been her sanctuary and then her prison since Daniel, her husband, her anchor, had been lost to a sudden illness 2 years prior. Lena, now 51, felt every one of those years etched into her spirit, a roadmap of a life lived, loved, and devastatingly lost. And Samuel, Daniel's son, her stepson, who had been a gangly, grief-stricken 22-year-old then, was now 24, and the change in him was no longer a subtle shift. It was a silent, powerful earthquake, reshaping the very landscape of their shared existence. Have you ever felt the world tilt on its axis? Not because of a grand cataclysmic event, but because of a quiet realization, a subtle change in the way someone looks at you or the way you see them. These are the moments that redefine everything. If you're intrigued by stories that explore the intricate dance of human connection, the unexpected turns of the heart then settle in. And hey, before we dive deeper, make sure you're subscribed and have that notification bell clicked, because this journey into the heart's wilderness is one you'll want to follow every step of the way. Lena had always viewed Sam through the lens of a protective caregiver. He was the boy who needed her, the living embodiment of her beloved Daniel's legacy, a constant, poignant reminder of life's fragility. But that particular sun-dappled afternoon, as she watched him effortlessly splitting logs for the evening fire, his movements fluid and strong, the perception shattered. His shoulders, broader now, strained against the worn flannel of his shirt. His jaw, once softened by youth, now held a resolute masculine line, and his eyes, the same startling hazel as his father's, held a new depth, a quiet fire that spoke of an inner landscape, transformed of a boy who had weathered the storm of grief and emerged a man complex and compelling. As the rhythmic thud of the axe punctuated the mountain stillness, the air between them, usually filled with comfortable silences and shared memories of Daniel, crackled with an unspoken tension. Not a forbidden predatory desire, but a profound unnerving tenderness. A magnetic pull that threatened to dissolve the established boundaries of their relationship. Later, as dusk began to purple the jagged peaks surrounding their valley, Sam's voice, deeper now, richer, startled her. "You've done so much, Lena," he said, his gaze steady as he stacked the wood by the hearth. "After Dad, you held everything together. For me. Thank you." His words, simple, unadorned, landed like a balm on a wound she hadn't realized was still so raw. It wasn't just gratitude for the roof over his head or the meals she prepared. It was an acknowledgement of the immense emotional labor, the silent battles she'd fought to keep their fractured world from collapsing entirely. In that instant, the roles of stepmother and stepson felt like ill-fitting garments, and she found herself adrift in a sea of conflicting emotions, struggling to reconcile the familiar comfort of their old dynamic with the gentle, healing, yet terrifyingly new connection that was unfurling between them. It was as if the 2 years of shared sorrow had cultivated a hidden garden, and now an unexpected, breathtaking bloom was pushing its way through the frost-hardened earth. That evening wasn't merely an observation, it was a quiet, internal cataclysm. Sam was no longer just Daniel's son defined by the past. He was a young man whose resilience, kindness, and an almost unnerving perceptiveness shone through his every gesture, his every carefully chosen word. His gratitude wasn't for mere sustenance, but for the emotional lifeline she'd unknowingly provided. And though a significant part of Lena recoiled from the sheer unfamiliarity, the wrongness of this emerging bond, another long-suppressed part of her whispered that sometimes life demands we discard the old maps and navigate by the stars of genuine human connection irrespective of labels or societal expectations. Their evening, marked by that simple exchange, heralded the subtle yet irreversible shift of tectonic plates beneath the surface of their lives. Sleep offered little respite that night. Lying alone in the vast bed she had once shared with Daniel, the scent of pine and wood smoke heavy in the air, Lena replayed Sam's words, the sincerity in his eyes. His gaze, deep with an emotion she couldn't quite decipher but felt keenly, had left her feeling vulnerable, exposed, as if a locked room in her heart had been gently, persistently nudged open. A shiver part, fear part, a strange, unfamiliar anticipation coursed through her. This quiet transformation, uninvited, deeply unsettling, yet undeniably magnetic, was drawing them into uncharted waters. The days that followed were imbued with this heightened awareness. Sam's behavior, always considerate, now possessed an added layer of gentle attentiveness. At breakfast, he'd share more of his thoughts, his plans for the small carpentry projects he'd undertaken, his gaze often lingering on her with a quiet concern that was both comforting and disquieting. One morning, as Lena was struggling to haul a heavy basket of laundry out to the line, he appeared silently at her side, his hands closing over hers on the basket's handles. "Let me help Lena," he said, his voice a low rumble. "You always manage everything yourself. You don't have to." The simple acknowledgement of her often invisible burdens, the recognition of a loneliness she rarely allowed herself to admit, touched her profoundly. His thoughtful actions were like sunlight filtering into the shadowed corners of their grief-stricken home, each small kindness a testament to his growing maturity, his deepening empathy. Later that week, she was in the kitchen kneading dough for their daily bread, a ritual that usually soothed her. She felt his presence before she saw him, a steady, quiet energy that filled the space. He leaned against the doorframe, not speaking, just watching her, his eyes holding an intensity that was entirely new. It wasn't the look of a son observing his mother figure. It was something else, something more focused, more personal. There was no demand in his gaze, no expectation, only a profound, empathetic care that made her feel seen, truly understood, in a way she hadn't been since Daniel. It wasn't about the physical closeness, but about the unspoken promise of companionship, the shared understanding of two souls who had weathered the same storm, albeit from different vantage points. It was as if in that silent domestic moment, they were both acknowledging the unexpected beauty of caring for one another, the weight of their shared past somehow sanctifying the present connection. That evening, an unfamiliar impulse led Lena to the small, slightly tarnished mirror in her bedroom. She truly looked at her reflection. The silver in her hair was more pronounced now, the lines around her eyes and mouth testaments to laughter and tears to a life fully lived. Yet beneath the patina of age and sorrow, she saw a woman of resilience, a woman who had loved deeply and lost profoundly, but who still carried a quiet strength, an enduring, if subdued, grace. This act of self-scrutiny didn't bring despair. Instead, it sparked a flicker of self-worth, a tentative ember of hope. She realized that despite the solitude, despite the lingering ache of loss, she was still capable of embracing warmth, perhaps even a new kind of joy. Sam's gentle, unwavering attentions had been like a steady hand guiding her back to a part of herself she thought had vanished with Daniel. What would you do if life offered you a connection that defied every expectation, every societal norm? Would you have the courage to explore it, or would the fear of the unknown of judgment hold you back? I'm genuinely curious to hear your perspectives, so please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights make this community richer. And if this story is beginning to resonate with you, if you're feeling that pull of empathy for Lena and Sam, a simple like on this video would mean the world. A few days later, the undercurrent of anticipation that had been simmering beneath the surface of their interactions finally crested. It was Lena's birthday, a day she'd intentionally let slide into oblivion since Daniel's death. She'd returned from a long, solitary hike, her mind still wrestling with the confusing tapestry of her emotions, to find the cabin transformed. Soft candlelight flickered from every surface, illuminating vases filled with wildflowers he must have spent hours gathering from the surrounding meadows. The small wooden table was beautifully set for two, a testament to his quiet, meticulous care. And the aroma wafting from the kitchen, her favorite lemon and herb-roasted chicken, was an olfactory embrace. Sam emerged, a shy, hopeful smile on his face, holding a small, clumsily wrapped gift. The sheer thoughtfulness, the deliberate effort to create a moment of beauty and celebration in their quiet, grief-laden world overwhelmed her. In that instant, she understood that his care wasn't an attempt to redefine their roles in a way that was inappropriate or demanding. It was a pure, unselfish offering of light in the darkness, a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness possess the power to mend the most fractured of hearts. As he wished her a happy birthday, his voice imbued with a tenderness that made her chest ache. Lena realized their journey wasn't about transgression or betrayal. It was about the evolution of a bond forged in the fires of shared loss that had grown into something profoundly healing, deeply supportive, and utterly unexpected. This wasn't a lurid melodrama of forbidden desire, but a quiet, poignant narrative of compassionate transformation where two souls burdened by the weight of the past were finding an extraordinary solace and perhaps something far more profound in each other's presence. The gift was a hand-carved wooden bird, a mountain bluebird, its wings outstretched in mid-flight, its tiny eyes painted with an astonishing accuracy. "I made it for you," he said, his gaze earnest, "for your desk, to remind you that, well, that there's still beauty, still flight." Later, after a meal that was both delicious and emotionally charged, he insisted she open another smaller gift. It was a dress. Not new, she realized, but vintage, discovered in a dusty antique store in the nearest town. It was a soft forget-me-not blue, the fabric a delicate time-worn silk, its style simple, elegant, timeless. As she slipped it on in the privacy of her bedroom, a wave of renewal, potent and deeply moving, washed over her. The dress didn't try to make her young again. It celebrated the woman she was, the journey she had undertaken. It draped her form with a gentle grace, a whisper of a past self harmonizing with the wisdom of her present. With a newfound quiet determination, she returned to the living room. Sam was stoking the fire. When he looked up and saw her, his breath caught audibly. His eyes wide with an admiration that was both sincere and profoundly respectful made the small rustic room seem to glow. "Lena," he said, his voice a low caress. "You are so beautiful." A blush, a sensation she'd thought long lost to her, warmed her cheeks. "The dress is lovely, Sam." She managed, her voice a little unsteady. "Thank you. For everything." He had opened a bottle of wine, a good Californian Zinfandel, Daniel's favorite. As they sat by the fire, the candlelight painting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn wooden walls, the initial awkwardness began to dissipate, replaced by a comfortable intimacy. They talked not just of Daniel this time, but of their own hopes, their dreams, the small quiet things that made their hearts ache or sing. And then as the fire burned low, Sam's voice took on a more serious, searching tone. "Lena." He began, his gaze direct, unwavering. "Why is it that someone like you, someone so full of life even after everything is still alone?" His question, so earnest, so devoid of artifice, pierced through her carefully constructed defenses. She looked into the flames, searching for an answer that felt true. "Perhaps, Sam," she said softly, "some of us learn to find a certain peace in solitude. Or perhaps life simply hasn't offered another path. Until now." His eyes, when she met them again, were filled with an understanding that went far beyond his years. "You deserve happiness, Lena." He stated, his voice thick with emotion. "You deserve to be cherished, truly cherished." He reached across the small space separating them and gently took her hand. His touch was warm, firm, a spark that ignited a cascade of sensations within her. "Not just remembered for who you were to my father, but loved for who you are right now." The atmosphere in the cabin, already thick with unspoken emotion, became charged electric. This wasn't just a birthday celebration. It was a precipice, a moment of profound, heart-altering revelation. Sam's thumb stroked the back of her hand, a small repetitive gesture that sent shivers through her. "Lena," he said, his voice a mere whisper now, "you look incredible tonight. I wanted this evening to be a reminder of how special you are. Because you are. To me." Her heart hammered against her ribs. That's very kind, Sam," she stammered. "But I don't understand why you're expending so much effort on me." A faint, almost sad smile touched his lips. "Because you deserve it," he repeated, his voice firm, despite its softness. "You're not just fulfilling a duty, Lena. You're an extraordinary woman, and you deserve to have someone see that, to celebrate that." The intensity of his gaze, the raw honesty in his words, overwhelmed her. He shifted closer, the warmth of his body, a palpable presence. He leaned in his breath, fanning her cheek, smelling faintly of wine and wood smoke. "Lena," he murmured, his voice husky with an emotion she couldn't misinterpret. "You deserve a life filled with joy, with passion. With someone who sees the incredible woman you are and wouldn't dream of letting you face the world alone." Her mind screamed a litany of reasons why this was wrong, impossible, a betrayal of Daniel's memory, a folly of an older woman captivated by a younger man's kindness. But her heart, that treacherous, rebellious organ, whispered a different, more compelling truth. In that charged silence, his presence was a magnet, his sincerity a force that disarmed her. Then the dam of her carefully constructed composure broke. A sob escaped her. "Sam, this is—" she began, her voice choked. "It's too much. I can't." She pulled her hand away, the sudden coldness and ache. I need a moment." Scrambling to her feet, tears blurring her vision, she fled to her bedroom, the sanctuary that suddenly felt like a cage. She leaned against the closed door, her body trembling, gulping in air. The reflection in the mirror was a stranger. A woman, flushed, tears streaked her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and an undeniable, exhilarating hope. "What is happening?" she whispered to the empty room, the scent of the gifted dress, the wildflowers clinging to her like a second skin. Exhaustion, emotional and profound, finally dragged her into a fitful, dream-haunted sleep. But the night was not yet done with its revelations. Hours later, a sound roused her, a soft tapping at her door. Her heart leaped. The room was dark, save for the moonlight striping the wooden floor. "Lena," Sam's voice hesitant, concerned. He opened the door slowly, his silhouette framed against the faint light from the living room. "Can I come in?" My heart thundered. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him, plunging them into an intimate darkness, the air thick with unspoken words, with years of shared history, and a future that hung precariously in the balance. The look in his eyes, even in the shadows, spoke volumes, of feelings long suppressed, of a tenderness that transcended their conventional roles, of a quiet determination that filled the small room with an almost unbearable intensity. This Lena knew was it, the turning point, the moment where the familiar world fractured and something new, something terrifying and beautiful struggled to be born. Her mind was a battlefield of conflicting emotions, but beneath the turmoil, one truth resonated with undeniable clarity. Their connection, forged in grief nurtured by kindness, was real, profound, and utterly undeniable. Gathering every ounce of courage she possessed, Lena spoke. "Sam." Her voice was a mere thread of sound, yet it carried the weight of her entire being. I'm so confused. What you said, what you did tonight, it means more than I can possibly express." She took a shaky breath. "But this, us, I need to understand." He moved closer, sinking to sit on the edge of her bed. Even in the dim light, she could see the earnestness in his eyes, the gentle resolve. "I only want your happiness, Lena." He said, his voice low and steady. "I want you to feel cherished, not as a memory, but as the vibrant, incredible woman you are. I'm here, whatever you need whenever you're ready, to talk, to figure it out, or just to not be alone anymore." His sincerity was a physical blow, disarming her, comforting her, terrifying her all at once, and so they talked. Through the darkest hours of the night, as the moon arced across the star-dusted sky, they spoke with a raw honesty neither had dared before. Of grief, of loneliness, of the unexpected solace they had found in each other. It wasn't a confession of forbidden love, not in the way the world might define it. It was an unveiling of two hearts scarred, but not broken, reaching for connection, for understanding, for the courage to embrace an unexpected, unscripted future. In the quiet intimacy of that shared darkness, Lena understood that sometimes the most profound acts of love are born from the courage to be vulnerable, to acknowledge our deepest needs, our most fervent unspoken hopes. That birthday that night became a watershed, a testament to the enduring resilience of the human spirit, the transformative power of kindness, and the breathtaking beauty that can emerge when we dare to open our hearts to the improbable, the unconventional. As the first pale light of dawn crept through the cabin window, Lena felt a shift within her, profound and irrevocable. The night had been a tempest of confusion, tenderness, and the fragile, incandescent promise of a new beginning. A promise that even in the face of fear and uncertainty, hope and the extraordinary courage to love and be loved could illuminate even the most shadowed paths. A wave of emotion, undeniable and fierce, surged through her. She had to speak her truth. His truth, their truth. "Sam." She whispered, her voice thick with unshed tears, yet ringing with a newfound conviction. I think I feel the same way. I want you in my life, not just as Daniel's son, as you." The relief, the pure, unadulterated joy that illuminated his face in the growing light was her undoing and her salvation. The years of buried longing, the societal dictates, the fear, it all receded. "I feel the same way," she repeated, her voice stronger now, her gaze locked with his. "And I want you, Sam." A slow, radiant smile spread across his lips. He reached for her, his hands gentle on her arms. Lena. He breathed, his eyes shining. She closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her courage, then met his gaze again. Please, she murmured, a plea and a promise, before I lose what little courage I have. And with a sigh that seemed to release years of unspoken sorrow and longing, she leaned into him, allowing the barriers to crumble, allowing the beautiful, terrifying truth of their connection to finally irrevocably take root. He didn't rush. His touch was reverence itself. He led her not to passion, but to peace, to a quiet space of shared understanding. They talked more of pasts and futures, of dreams harbored and fears faced. And as the sun climbed higher, flooding the little cabin with golden light, the last vestiges of their old roles melted away, leaving only two people, two hearts finding their way toward a new shared dawn. Lena felt a lightness she hadn't known in decades, a profound sense of hope that was as breathtaking as the mountain vistas outside their window. This wasn't just a new chapter. It was an entirely new book, its pages waiting to be filled with a love story that was uniquely, beautifully theirs. What does it truly mean to be courageous in matters of the heart? Can love in its purest form transcend age, circumstance, and the expectations of others? We believe it can. Lena and Sam's journey is a testament to the transformative power of opening oneself to unexpected connections. Thank you for joining them on this intimate and profound part of their story. If their courage and their evolving love have touched you, please consider subscribing to our channel, liking this video, and sharing it with others who might find hope and inspiration in their path. Your thoughts and comments are always welcome below. Let's continue the conversation. There is so much more to explore, and we're thrilled to have you with us.